With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hello there. It is Eric Erickson here across the nation. The phone number is 877-973-7425. I gotta spend a moment before I get back to phone calls. I gotta talk about several things woven together that are somewhat disturbing. I know I'm right on this, and I don't have the evidence to back me up, but I also know that I'm right. That is that the most aggressive advocates of transgender, gender, quote-unquote, affirming surgery, castration and hysterectomies and the like, plastic surgery, are in the Malthusian camp that the world is overpopulated and we need to do something about overpopulation. And so they're embracing transgenderism, which is driven more and more, the research shows, by peer pressure among kids who have pre-existing mental health issues. There's a lot of research, by the way, out there that shows that the kids most likely to embrace transgenderism are kids who have mental health struggles of one kind or another. And they embrace that. It is a social contagion. They hear it in culture. They hear it around them. They are pushed by teachers or peers, and they embrace it to their later detriment. And a lot of the people who are pushing it the most are the people who think the planet is overpopulated and we could do with less people. They're also of the environmentalist cult. NBC's Think website. Think is where insane people go to voice opinions, and NBC gives them some veneer of mainstream credibility. Think is the place with, like, every bat poop crazy idea you can think of has come out on this website. And now this one is from a guy named Travis Ryder, the director of the Master of Bioethics degree program at Berman Institute of Bioethics. A startling and honestly distressing view is beginning to receive serious consideration in both academic and popular discussions of climate change ethics. According to this view, having a child is a major contributor to climate change. The logical takeaway here is that everyone on Earth ought to consider having fewer children. Although culturally controversial, the scientific half of this position is fairly well established. Several years ago, scientists showed that having a child, especially for the world's wealthy, is one of the worst things you can do for the environment. That data was recycled this past summer in a paper showing that none of the activities most likely to reduce individuals' carbon footprints are widely discussed. The second moral aspect of the view, that perhaps we ought to have fewer children, is also being taken seriously in many circles. Indeed, I've written widely on the topic myself. But scientific evidence and moral theorizing aside, this is a complicated question with plenty of opponents. In what follows, I will address some of the challenges to this idea, because while I recognize that this is an uncomfortable discussion, I believe that the seriousness of climate change justifies uncomfortable conversations. In this case, that means that we need to stop pretending the decision to have children doesn't have environmental and ethical consequences. The argument that having a child adds to one's carbon footprint depends on the view that each of us has a personal carbon ledger for which we are responsible. Furthermore, some amount of an offspring's emissions comes out of their parents' ledger. Now, I'm going to scroll down to this. This is not our world any longer, though, and our moral sense is evolving to reflect differences. Moral decisions are no longer about math. Being a part of the solution matters. The importance of this argument for family size is obvious. Is having one fewer child reduces one's contribution to the harms of climate change, the choice of family size becomes a morally relevant one. I am certainly not arguing that we should shame parents or even that we're obligated to have a certain number of children. As I've said elsewhere, I don't think there's a tidy answer to the challenging questions of procreative ethics. But that does not mean we're off the moral hook as we face the very real prospect of catastrophic climate change. Difficult, even uncomfortable conversations are important. Yes, we should discuss the ethics of making babies with care and respect, but we should discuss it. Okay, let me open this bag of worms for you. There were hearings on Capitol Hill about transgender advocates and detransitioning. One of the transgender activists on Capitol Hill was asked about people detransitioning.
A lot of people in the news coming out detransitioning. Could you speak to that phenomenon and what's that person going through? Did they get it wrong? Were they going through a period? Is it just a fluid thing? I mean, could you speak to that?
Well, I can't really speak to an individual's personal experience. I mean, somebody's gender is just a really personal experience, but I can speak to you. I've been in this work for a long time. I know a lot of trans folks, close friends, family members, and I just never heard a case of anyone detransitioning. So I honestly don't think it's a real.
There's a number of cases in the news right now where this is happening, and the concern for parents is, we've all had awkward teen years where we've questioned things in existence and a lot of things, and the question is kids who are maybe making a permanent decision even without the input of their parents. And making irreversible decisions. There's some who've talked about they can't have kids anymore and they wish they could.
That's Congressman Michael Cloud, who I know and think very highly of. Congressman Cloud is, you can hear the compassion in his voice. He's not trying to be combative with this person. But there are real issues here. And now there are these things. This is a gender activist talking about keeping parents out of the decision-making process.
Do parents have a right? Should they be informed about what's going on? Do they have a right to know what's going on in their kids' lives?
So I think, again, those of us who are protecting and supporting young people are there and trusted with the information of the things that they are dealing with. In terms of parents' rights to know at schools, here in Colorado, parents don't have the right. If a young person is questioning their gender or their sexuality, there are laws in place that say that they have the right to process that with their trusted counselor and so forth.
You do a significant amount of your work with kids even starting at age 13.
Yeah.
What would be the age of consent then in your mind?
In our community, the age of consent to mental health therapy is 12 years old. So we have laws that enable young people to connect with trusted adults who can support them. That is just so important. It prevents suicide. And so we serve young people at 13.
12 for the age of consent to begin having your hysterectomies and your castration surgeries. That's where we are here. Now listen to this teacher on TikTok.
The way to make sure that students' pronouns are respected in your classroom is to give a class survey. It's anonymous, and the first question you can ask is, what is your name on the roster? Then the next question following up could be, what is the name you'd like me to call you in class? And it's really important to follow those up with questions such as, can I share this information with your caretakers? Can I share this with your other teachers? Can I share this information with other students in the classroom? And then doing all of that again with pronouns.
So Congressman Cloud of Texas, a great guy, is interviewing an activist on transgenderism who says the age of consent for mental health therapy is 12 years old. They begin working with kids as young as 13 on gender transitions. This activist also says that parents don't really have a right to know if their child is going through a sex change. You can keep parents out of the process for a 13-year-old. There's a teacher on TikTok talking about how she surreptitiously surveys kids in class to find out what pronouns they want to use and whether or not she should talk to their parents as a way to encourage kids to be open and expressive and be able to safely transition without their parents' knowledge. Notice how so much of this is about keeping parents out of the process. They believe that the kids belong to them, to the state, and that parents are doing a disservice, that you're not allowed to raise your child to have your values. Concurrently, you've got NBC News running a think piece by a bioethicist that says you should stop having kids because it's bad for the planet. When you have transgender advocates trying to get kids to transition behind their parents' back and sterilize themselves, and bioethicists saying we shouldn't have kids because of the carbon footprint, all of these factors strongly suggest that there is this Molochian, Malthusian movement of deeply dark spiritual forces at play, trying to prevent the population from procreating and spreading, all to save the planet, putting the creation above creator, putting the plants and animals above people. I honestly find it profoundly demonic at this point. I'll go there. I think we are dealing with demonic forces when it comes to this stuff. God creates us male and female, and these people tell us, no, you get to create yourself exactly as you want to create yourself. It's like the devil in the Garden of Eden asking Eve, did God really say? And it's like the devil twisting scripture in the wilderness, tempting Jesus. On top of that, you have God saying, be fruitful and multiply, and you have the bioethicist saying, if you do that, you're going to harm the earth. This is the devil speaking through secular culture, trying to prevent the advance of the church by limiting the population of the planet. Particularly in the West, you will note. This is a grave concern among rich people in the West, rich secular people. When you talk to missionaries who are going into unchurched parts of the world, they tell you that the demonic influence is actually the strongest there. I've heard stories from missionaries who I don't believe are liars, and stories that'll make your hair stand on end. When you talk to exorcists, when you talk to pastors who deal with evil influence on the planet, the thing you hear is that where the church is going and where the church has been are the two places where evil thrives the most. Where the church is presently tends to have the least bad influences. Where the church has faded away, evil creeps back in. The old pagan ways creep back in. And here we are in this country with the receding of the Christian church in America, and the pagan ways of Moloch are back in. Child sacrifice to save the planet. We got to have abortions. We got to limit reproduction to be able to save the planet. The crops, we got to save the crops by killing the kids. We got to sterilize the kids to save the planet. We got to do things to kids to save the planet. This is not a new thing. This is a multi-thousand-year-old pagan practice that we are seeing now crop up again in Western culture. Call me nuts if you want, but I'm serious here. I'm serious. What we are watching is paganism come back in as the church fades in the West. The Malthusian, Molochian view that we've got to have abortions and limit child production. We've got to sterilize our children and convince them to change genders. Did God really make us male and female? Did he really say, no, you can do it yourself. You can change. When people begin twisting scripture like that, when people begin twisting the world and twisting reality, you're dealing with demonic forces in my mind. Regardless of whether you believe in that sort of stuff or not, I hope you realize just how deeply corrupting and bad this is for secular forces to be trying to convince children to change their gender behind their parents' back, to help them do it without their parents knowing about it. That you're trying to separate children from their parents. First, they tried it with Common Core, get the parents out of the classroom. They can't help them with math anymore. And once they got them out of the classroom, and can't help them with math anymore. Now they're trying to do it with gender reassignment and sex change operations and calling it gender affirming care. We're elevating the mental health of people who have mental health challenges, trying to not only treat it as normal, but perform a surgery to get them to conform to this. The whole thing makes no sense. It's deeply contradictory. I personally believe it's all demonic. Y'all, it is sunny outside. It is sunny. It hasn't been in a week. 877-973-7425 if you want to be on the phones. Oh, relevant to that, I'm going to let John ask his question. John, welcome to the program.
Hey, brother. I'm a little concerned. You have spoken several, probably a week or so. Yes, we've had nothing but cloud, rain. The ground is soggy. And by the way, you do a very good job of presenting the news. It does encourage me sometimes and discourages me other times. But if you're going to the golf course today, because you said on Thursday you wanted to go to the golf course, should I head for shelter? Because, you got a wild swing there, buddy. And
listen, my swing's gotten better thanks to Kyle up at Barnsley Gardens. My swing's gotten so much better.
Yeah, so much better. However, should I head for shelter, or the next time you and I talk, do I call you Divot or Mr. Divot?
Well, I got a divot in the side of my head from my 14-year-old. Okay, first of all, the first thing, John, that I've got to do is fire the call screener for letting you through.
he and I were laughing together.
Definitely got a termination now for Michael.
No, listen, we're 10 days away from Christmas. All of this stuff, the stress of the holiday season itself. Did I give Aunt Judy the gift she wanted? Let's lighten the air, possibly, and just have a good laugh. Thank the Lord, we're alive. We will endure. We will endure.
We will. People are way more resilient. Now, I will tell you, my swing is resilient too, John. I, in all seriousness, I am a terrible golfer, folks. John's listened long enough to know. But I will say this. There's a guy, Barnsley Gardens, it's this nice resort up north of Atlanta, where now you can't even get a room anymore because everybody goes there. But they've got their golf pro. His name is Kyle. I went up there. I was not expecting much, and I am a terrible golfer. He has actually now got me, after just 1 hour lesson, consistently off the tee, middle of the fairway. I have witnesses to prove it. I'm still not great, but I was not expecting the caliber of the golf lesson I got, and I recommend him to everyone now, that he just in one lesson improve my golf game. And I'm hoping for Christmas that's one of the things on my Christmas list is another golf lesson from Kyle at Barnsley Gardens. Go ahead. Is
the golf ball about the size of a basketball?
No, it's a regular golf ball. I will, and listen, I don't even keep an extra one in my pocket anymore to throw down and say, look, I hit it, and not have to go off into the woods. But my favorite golf club, I do want you to know, my favorite golf club is still my foot. When I kick it from the rough onto the fairway, but I'm getting closer. John, listen, I appreciate the laugh and the phone call. Have a Merry Christmas. Y'all, I'm not kidding. Kyle at Barnsley Gardens. Now, I shouldn't say that because now I'll never get another golf lesson from him. He'll be too busy. But I was just absolutely flabbergasted. I've had golf lessons from fantastic courses around the country, and none as good as what I got from Kyle at Barnsley Gardens. Hello there. We got folks on the phones. I guess I should take some phone calls. The phone number here is 877-973-7425. John, I want you to know, just for you, if you're still listening, I am going to go play golf this afternoon. You might want to take shelter, except I don't know that I can hit it as far as from where I am to you, but I'm going to go hit golf balls. I might even smoke a cigar. I might even have a glass of bourbon on the golf course. It's sunshiny outside. I'm going to go celebrate. Playing golf with me is really, it's more like drink some bourbon, smoke cigars, and maybe hit a golf ball. It's a fun way to play. Now, back to the phones we go. Let's see here. Norm in Woodstock, you're going to be up next.
Hey, Eric, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm not sure I want to talk about what I said because if you're talking golfing, I got off the course this morning. So
oh man, I hate you. I hadn't been in weeks. The weather's just been garbage, and I've been traveling so much.
Yeah, it was a little wet, but the sun's shining with it. You're going to have that advantage. So, reason I called in, I don't listen a lot, but the last few weeks I've tuned in off and on, and you've talked about during this election cycle about let's take Georgia as an example with Herschel against Warnock, that the Republicans did not put a very good candidate up there to go against there. And that's the basis of my question. We've got tens, if not hundreds of thousands of well-qualified people in this country to run for the positions that we are electing them to. But yet we are continuously facing who's the best of the worst, not who's the best of the best. And I don't know how, I like your opinion and your thoughts as to how do we begin to turn that tide. I know part of it's, okay, we need to have term limits. We do have term limits. It's called voting. We could vote those people out, but we've allowed the people that are in power to create I call it a zoo, they call it a system, where being a politician and being a person who's governing over is now a career path versus a public service, which I think was what it was originated when the founding fathers started this country. So until we can get to that point where we have good people, qualified people running for office, we're never going to get out of the hole that we're in.
Yeah. So you're right. Trying to how do I want to break this down for you? It used to actually be simple, and now it's a lot more complicated. And part of it is money. In finding people. But, so also I will say that there are good people who do run, and oftentimes they get so vilified we think they're bad people. But let me use Rich McCormick as a good example for you. Rich McCormick is going to be a congressman. He has a real heart for the Lord and for service. He's a Marine. He's an ER doctor. Mm-hmm. And by the way, he and I, we don't agree on everything. Like he'll support Kevin McCarthy for speaker, and I understand why he's doing that. He's not going to get up there and rock the boat immediately as a new member of Congress, but I also know his heart, and his heart is in the right place. He's got a heart of service. That's the sort of guy we want in the House of Representatives. Or we got a guy like Tim Scott in the U.S. Senate, who is a profoundly decent human being. We should be encouraging those people. The problem comes, though, is that a lot of those people, they don't want to give up what they're doing. They don't want to give up their life. They don't want to give up their local job. And you got to have a real passion for running for office. So I would just tell you this. We should, all of us, always be on the lookout for good people who have a heart for the Lord and for service, and try to encourage those people to run. But it does take them building a network and making contacts. I've tried helping people run for office before, and those who have no real political background, it's a hard thing to do.
Right, but here's the bigger question, and I think here's the thing that has to be addressed. That's the biggest confounding problem. And I have a friend of mine who would be a very good person to be in office. He's very ethical, moral, heart for the Lord, and knows how to do things and accomplish stuff. And I talked to him a few years back, and I was like, if somebody was to come up to you and say, hey, I'll support, I got the money for you. You don't have to put a dime in this campaign. I want you to run to be one of our next congressmen, senators, governor, whatever. Would you do it? And it's like a half a heartbeat. He's like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I said, well, why not? Well, I wouldn't drag myself and my family through the mud that I've got to go to get there. And that's the problem. Even, people will make up stuff, and people who are successful in doing this, they're kind of like, why do I want to put myself through this regimen in order to try to help, even though it's the right thing to do. Like you said, that's a huge deterrent right now.
It is. I mean, look at McCormick when he ran. He was accused of all sorts of awful stuff. None of it was true. It dragged his family through the mud. Yeah, it takes a certain sort of person to want to do that. Now, of course, he's a Marine, so he knows how to handle it. But yeah, look, it's one of the frustrating things. And I will tell you one of the ways that we probably should do it, and this is off the wall, and people will usually react viscerally and terribly when I say it, but I think it's true. We should start by, we can't impose term limits because it would take a constitutional amendment. 2/3 of both houses, 3/4 of the states. Congress isn't going to do it. What we could do with legislation, expand the House of Representatives to 1,000 people. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but just bear with me. One of the problems we have right now is when Congress was started, if you look at some of the original proposals of the Founding Fathers, they wanted Congress, one member of Congress for every 50,000 people, which right now that would put the U.S. House at over 10,000 members, essentially. But we used to, at the beginning of this country, people don't really understand it. At the beginning of the country, people in a community, they knew their congressman because he was from their community. Now I've got a member of Congress who represents me who lives 3 hours from me. How does he know about my community? In a compact urban area, you've got 750,000 people in a clustered area. It's easy to be in the same community, but you're never going to know your congressman. I really think if we want to have a meaningful, immediate improvement, expand the House of Representatives to lower the number of people each representative represents, and you do begin to get more representative democracy and encourage more people to go because the fundraising drag is less. That's probably the best thing to do out of the gate.
One last question then, because I don't disagree with you. I think that's a viable option. But how do we, and I don't think this can happen because I think that the people in charge are the ones who set this, but how do we go back to being people like the congressmen and senators, not be a career path, not being the golden parachute so that they're making way more money than the average person and they're set for life and all these kinds of things, because that's what we've created. And I don't think it was ever intended to be created as a career path, was it?
No, it wasn't. And in fact, one of the easy solutions that we could do is to go back. Unfortunately, so many people crazy people have captured both political parties at the state level, but get rid of primaries and go back to having party conventions pick the nominees. Because when you go back prior to the rise, the advent of the modern primary system, the average time that a member of Congress spent in Washington was 4 years. Because they had to win at a political convention. And it was easy for people as their mood shifted to say, no, you've been there long enough, it's somebody else's turn. Next person go for 4 years. Nowadays, you got to run. You got to constantly raise money. Nobody wants to do it. The guys who are there stay there because of the fundraising challenges. So you get rid of the primary system, you go back to the party system, make the parties relevant again, force the parties to be grown up again. Then you actually limit tenure in Washington without having to amend the Constitution.
Yeah, but that kind of deviated from my question a little bit because I don't disagree with that either. But again, once you're in and you're elected, and, like I said, I don't know what the average salary is for a congressman and senator is now, but I know it was way more than I was making as a firefighter.
It's like $185, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty good money. And then you get health care the rest of your life, right? And you continue to get all this money.
You used to. Now you have to go on Obamacare.
Well, still, all I'm saying is that we've created a career path versus a public service to the nation to lead, do your thing, get in there, lead, and get out. And that's what wasn't it? Am I correct? Wasn't George Washington? Didn't he have to be coerced to run for president? He didn't want to, right?
Right. He didn't want to. He wanted to go back to the farm, and they basically designed the presidency around Washington. So, I understand the point you're making, and I'm been sitting here fuming at you the whole time because you got to play golf this morning and I didn't. So I hate you right now. But no, there's no good answer. There are little things that could be done to improve the system. There's just no silver bullet. But part of it also, I got to be honest with you, this is the pessimistic part that I hate to bring up, but part of it is the character of the people in general these days in the country. As the country itself becomes, as the country becomes less
I go to Walmart
serious. I try never to. I mean, I don't even like to go to Target at this point. The reason I don't want to go to Target is I know I go in for 5 things, and for some reason my family comes out with $1,000. I'm like, what the hell happened? We were going for a toothbrush. But yeah,
well, listen,
look,
I appreciate your time. I'll let you get out
absolutely.
with it and have a great day out on the course.
I appreciate it, Norm. Thanks so much. I mean, that is part of the problem here is we are dealing with a society in collapse. No one cares about family anymore. It's everyone's very divided, and this is a reflection of where things are that we as a society are dealing with. I mean, look at this TikTok stuff. I was going to talk about this. Brian Kemp in Georgia has become the 11th governor to ban TikTok on governmental devices. The Senate yesterday passed a provision for a spending bill that will ban TikTok on government devices nationwide, which is good. We are a nation of people consumed by entertainment and content on their phones and are dumbing down. And I mean, no offense to the people who are focusing on the Brunson versus Adams case so much, but I mean, the fact that people are obsessed with a know-nothing case and being sold a bag of goods from grifters, and they lack the discernment to know that's the case. This are the people who are electing the members who are going to Congress, which is not a surprise we could get to something like this. Big thing is, one thing we could do is all of us commit to just make Washington less essential to our lives, and that would help tremendously. All right, David, you're going to be the next caller. Welcome.
Hi, Eric. I hear you talk about the golf game. I pray God's guidance down the straight and narrow every time I play, and for some reason, I don't think he's listening to me right now.
Yeah, look, I get that. I'm sometimes I think that there is a God until I get to the course, and then I realize he's turned his back on me.
Exactly. But what I was calling about is it's kind of a foundational issue that I see between progressives and conservatives, where progressives seem to accept the hive mindset, and it impacts everything from their talking points and the way they all coalesce together on talking points, to even where they live, where the high-density population areas are progressive. Whereas conservatives, and I'll say we tend to be more individualistic, and it's harder to build that consensus. And I think it's part of what the previous caller was talking about. It's harder to get a good candidate because I'm an individual. I can do just as well by myself as opposed to leading this hive mindset. And you being the political expert that you are, I wanted to get your thoughts on that and agree, disagree, and how do we build a consensus in this group of individuals?
Yeah, this is why the primary process matters as much as it does, David, because we as both political parties need to be able to battle these ideas out in primaries and decide which way they want to go, and then try to sell the voters on them in the general election. I personally believe ideas matter greatly. I personally want conservative ideas advanced, and it requires us to have this debate in primaries. And unfortunately, I honestly do believe one of the problems we had in this past cycle is we dealt with the rise of celebrity candidates, whether it was a Dr. Oz or Herschel Walker or the like, where it wasn't a battle of ideas, it was a battle of name brand. And when you're having a battle of name brand, you're not having the battle of ideas that we need.
Yes. But how do you, it seems that the conservatives have difficulty identifying the candidate who has those leadership qualities to take a bunch of individuals and create a cohesive group.
I would disagree with that to a degree, in that when you're not dealing with Donald Trump says, here's my guy, and everybody rushed to him around the country where you had these primary processes, they actually worked out pretty good, I think, overall. And you look at some of the people who are there battling it out on ideas. You've got, Tim Scott, you got Ron DeSantis, you got in the House, you got Chip Roy, you got Jim Banks, you've got a number of people who are advancing the ideas case who made it through primaries. It's just where we focused on celebrity and not ideas, it ended up badly. George in Tequila, you're going to be the last caller.
Hi, Eric. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Oh, good. I just wanted to say I agree with you wholeheartedly on that stuff that you're talking about with the demonic influences. Because I remember back in the 90s, Pat Buchanan was talking about environmentalism being basically a cover for the new paganism that's coming back.
Yes.
And recently I read this book called Return of the Gods, which it's a little out there in some ways, but it's basically talking about the return of Baal, Moloch, and Ishtar. And he runs it out a little too far, but I think the basic point holds.
Yeah, look, I'm glad you said that because, it is, and there have been numerous things like I've studied in seminary works where when you see the church recede in areas of the world, what you do see is not new ideas come in. You just see repackaged old ideas. There's nothing new under the sun, as Ecclesiastes would say. And we are seeing this. I mean, we're seeing Baal worship. I mean, we're seeing the rise of magic crystals and Wiccans and witches and people who want to cast spells and people who say they're atheists who are deeply spiritual, which is all this paganism is. And kudos to you remembering Buchanan was one of the people in the 90s who pointed that out. And a lot of people at the time, I was not one of them. A lot of people scoffed and mocked him for it, but he was absolutely right. I got to tell you about Eden Pure before I get out of here on commercial break. And, again, this goes back to me talking about ads yesterday. I actually am a user of this product, and I believe in using it this way. I keep one handy with me all the time when I travel in my travel bag because of smells. In fact, I'm going to Las Vegas next week for a couple of days. I'll be back next Friday, but I'll have my Eden Pure with me because you go to hotel rooms now sometimes and people are smoking in the hotel rooms, and hotels, they bring out the air purifier. They try to clean it out. Sometimes it doesn't work, or you get a rental car and it stinks, or you got litter odors and whatnot. The Eden Pure wipes out those odors. In a car, you can operate it with a USB cord, or you can plug it directly into the wall. You get 3 of them from EdenPureDeals.com with the discount code ERIC3. EdenPureDeals.com. Discount code is ERIC3. It will wipe out odors. You get 3 of them for less than $200. You're saving $200. You get free shipping. You go to EdenPureDeals.com. You use the discount code ERIC3, ERICK3, and you can wipe out odors. May have to fire up the army of activists on the Kevin McCarthy thing. There is news. I need to bring you the news. The United States Senate has passed a bipartisan measure to ban TikTok from being used or downloaded on any federal device. Now, Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, has also sent a directive to Georgia agencies to restrict the use of TikTok on state equipment. His order prohibits the use of TikTok, WeChat, and Telegram on laptops, mobile phones, and other devices issued, owned, leased, or otherwise controlled by the state of Georgia. A little more expansive than some, and his concern is the involvement in each of those with the Communist Party of China. Maryland, South Dakota, Idaho, Utah, Texas, Oklahoma, and several other states have also closed this or put this ban in place. The reason is because there's a lot of data that TikTok shares information with the Chinese People's Liberation Army, that it's a front for the Chinese government and an intel operation. And so you've got American governments now blocking it on devices. You yourself should behave the same way on your phone and get rid of this app that is a surveillance site from China.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.